Hi, everybody!
Hi, everybody!
Hi, Dr. Nick!
So I decided to cap off 2022 with the movies I saw this year. And yes, considering what my regular videos are about, you should not be surprised that most of them were comic book movies. The surprise is that not all of them were. Also, assume spoilers for each movie discussed.
I assume you're ready for action?
This kitten's always ready for action.
This movie is a fun watch, something I really enjoyed, but it barely qualifies as a movie. It's a collection of shenanigans involving Catwoman and Batwoman, and that's kinda it. Also, at the time, I remember this movie faced some accusations of queerbaiting in a scene involving Selina seducing Kate Kane. Now, as a straight guy, I don't know how much my opinion matters here. But I do know Selina Kyle isn't someone to not take advantages of her looks, especially if she knows someone is susceptible to her charms. Apologies to the Cat Kate shippers, or whatever the proper portmanteau is. Well, this is gonna make some people mad, but maybe not as many as I thought. However, just to raise your blood pressure further, this movie would have been on the bottom. What kept it above the previous entry was a couple of things. Firstly, it was nice to see the Justice Society on the big screen, and I would love to see them again someday. And secondly, it was nice to see Henry Cavill be confirmed to be back as Superman. Oh. I guess it's just the one thing then. While it is impressive to see The Rock finally make the movie he wanted to make since 2007, it's very clear his ego may have dictated certain plot points. Also, clearly there's an attempt for Black Adam to be this alternate version of heroism that doesn't see any issues of killing, but this is the DCEU. Up until this point, the heroes have been constantly killing, so it doesn't really work. It might have if we saw Black Adam was a bit more heinous before he decided to change. Fun fact, the New 52 version of Black Adam wasn't given his power by his son in the comics. He murdered his nephew to get them. But I'm assuming Dwayne Johnson didn't want his character to be seen in a negative light.
Every night, I dream the same dream.
Sam Raimi returns to direct a Marvel movie and it's like he never left. As in, the effects are better, but you really can't shake off the feeling you're watching a high-quality B movie. This movie's biggest problem is that it suffers from a lack of identity. It's trying to be a Doctor Strange sequel, except nobody remembers or cares what happened in the first one. It's trying to be a follow-up to WandaVision by completely removing most of the complexity from the character. It's trying to explore the multiverse in more detail and spends its time on two worlds mostly. It's trying to continue the overall story of the MCU by introducing a bunch of characters who have one cool scene and or die, or both. While I'm not completely sold on Wanda as a villain, I kinda appreciate the film not dancing around the whole thing and just not wasting any time. She'll probably be back. We didn't see a body. And I don't envy the mental gymnastics the writers will have to do to make her sympathetic again. However, this wasn't the only movie to turn a hero to the dark side.
Hal, what's wrong with you?
He was the stepping stone so I could fulfill my true calling with these.
Oh, Hal, you're never gonna live down Parallax. Green Lantern Beware My Power gives John Stewart Kyle Rayner's origin and kills off the Green Lantern Corps and turns Hal evil. Also, the Ranthanagar War is happening, and Sinestro is here, and Green Arrow is here, because why not? The movie has some solid moments, however, either they try to do too much with it, or, more likely, they cut out some connecting tissue which turned the whole thing very haphazard. For a more in-depth look at this movie, check out a review by Casually Comics, link in the description, but there are a few things worth noting. John barely feels like a character in his own movie, and there are moments where you'll forget he's even there. I will assume this movie will not be very fun for someone not familiar with the lore of the space characters of the DC Universe, as while I know how impactful the name Adam Strange is, he's not exactly a household name. Did Sinestro corrupt Hal, or did he turn evil as a failed attempt at corruption? The movie never quite makes it clear. And finally, dear lord, that design for evil Hal it's just so drab. You had a perfectly good design from the comics. Why change? However, the movie, such as it is, has some great character moments, and the interactions between the characters are kinda nice, truncated as they may be, and since I'm familiar with the lore of some of these characters, I got what they were trying to do, and I think Hal's turn to evil is kinda better than Wanda's turn to evil, which is why I ranked it above Multiverse of Madness, but I can't call it a great movie, and the difference between the two is not that much.
And flick! Oh, you flick too hard, damn it!
Yeah, I like this more than Multiverse of Madness. And now to lose all credibility, I like this more than Thor Ragnarok. Okay, let me explain. In the previous Thor movie, every single moment that Taika Waititi could undercut with a joke, he did. It was cute at first, but by the end, I found myself not being able to care for the stakes established. This one, well, he still does it, but he doesn't do it all the times he tries, so that's something. I do love that this movie does not rely on Loki at all. Someone who is arguably the breakout character of the Thor franchise, and is also kind of its crutch. But if this movie did anything right, it was Jane Foster as Thor. Equal parts endearing and empowering. Natalie Portman shines as the Mighty Thor, and I'm not gonna lie, I would have preferred she take over the franchise. But alas, if only wishes were screaming goats.
Is it just me, or is it getting a little bit nippy out here? He's here.
Be honest, how many of you were expecting this movie? Scratch that. How many of you even saw this movie? No, scratch that again. How many of you even knew this movie existed? I have a soft spot for the lore of Mortal Kombat, despite having only played the mobile version, though I have been making efforts to correct that. The first two movies in the Mortal Kombat Legends series were fairly generic and by the formula for the franchise, but this one decides to perform a fatality on the formula and strike out on its own. Earthrealm, that's what Earth is called in the Mortal Kombat universe, is run over by Revenants, and somehow Kano of all people has taken over and is running things, with people as powerful like Shang Tsung working as his lackey. We don't see any of the previous cast, except for an old Sub-Zero who seemingly wants nothing to do with anything anymore. However, a new hero is ready to emerge and go through his own journey. How will his and old Sub-Zero's paths intertwine? How did Kano become the supreme ruler of the realm? And will Scorpion make a gratuitous cameo?
Get over here.
Now, did the fact that one of my favorite characters, Kenshi, gets a spotlight and mostly faithful backstory adaptation play into this movie's placement? A bit, yes. But the movie also kind of works as a Mad Max-esque post-apocalyptic future tale with the Mortal Kombat characters. Yeah, there are some moments that will not make sense to anyone who might not be caught up with the lore, but it does have a heart underneath it all. Of course, it's a Mortal Kombat adaptation, so expect that heart to be ripped out through the chest in a shower of blood. Odd name aside, apparently Akira Toriyama, creator of Dragon Ball, forgot what the current series was called, which if you know anything about the series just adds a bit of charm to the whole affair. This movie continues the trend of Dragon Ball Super movies that the 2018 Broly movie started, i.e., just being a fun Dragon Ball adaptation in general. Dragon Ball Super Superhero also brings the focus on characters not named Goku and Vegeta, though the two have a very satisfying moment at the end, so you're not completely deprived of some good old Saiyan fisticuffs. Instead, being a Piccolo movie throughout. If you're familiar with Big Green's journey throughout Dragon Ball history, it's fun to appreciate how far he's come. And the movie is at its best when it focuses on Piccolo and his interaction with people like Pan, Dende, Bulma, Shenron, and the others. The villains are kinda just there to move the plot along, but they don't slow the pace and aren't a detriment by any means. And then there's Gohan. While the movie gets a lot of points for doing so much new, Gohan seemingly can't break out of his cycle of being a scholar, but after facing a problem that only his fist can solve, he tries to fight, but seemingly isn't up to it until he taps his potential and unleashes Gohan Blanco? Yeah, I know the official name is Gohan Beast, but come on. I don't think it would be wrong to say that this movie ended MCU Phase 4 on a high. Which is interesting because looking back at all the trouble behind the scenes, it's almost remarkable that it got made. While as of December 2022, we're all wondering about how the Flash movie is supposed to come out next year, due to our collective memory being so short-term, we may have forgotten that for a while, Letitia Wright was Disney's Ezra Miller. But regardless of her terrible stance on vaccines as a real person, she did an amazing job as Shuri, showcasing a believably wide range of emotions as she struggled with her grief as it pushed her further into recklessness. There were some amazing performances from the entire cast, but I love Tenoch Huerta's Namor as a dark mirror and kind of a kindred spirit to Shuri. Kudos on bringing Namor, a character who can tragically be quite one note at times in the source material, to the big screen with a lot more nuance and depth. The best part of this movie for me, though, was how it portrayed the big climactic fight. Often the highlight of these movies, and a crowd-pleasing moment with lots of action still present here, the entire movie has left the viewer with an undercurrent of ease, who, at this point you're not worried about the outcome of the fight. You're worried about the aftermath and what will be the state of affairs after the fight is done. A lot of people will say that superhero movies are only fluff, but with a movie like this, which also serves as a heartwarming tribute to the late Chadwick Boseman, I think that's an unfair one. This is a really good movie and is deserving of all the praise. Not gonna lie, numbers 1 and 2 on this list were kind of fixed for a long time, though Wakanda Forever came very close to taking this one's place. The Batman by Matt Reeves, and with Robert Pattinson in the role of the titular Bat, is really, really good. Everything from Gotham being depicted as a grimy, ramshackle hellhole, the corruption on each and every level of authority, the abuses of power committed by the current position holders, to the toll living life as an antisocial vigilante takes on Bruce. There has been a lot of care taken when it comes to the details. I was a little worried on realizing there were multiple villains in this story, as well as the fact that this is another Batman story partially influenced by The Long Halloween. However, a lot more influence seems to have been taken from the New 52 version of Batman's origin called Zero Year, written by Scott Snyder, as well as, surprisingly, the first Telltale Batman game. The performances are great, the plot is well written, if a bit unnecessarily long, and the characters have a lot of depth to them, which I can't wait to see further depicted in sequels. If we see any of it in sequels, that is, because WB smells a money-making opportunity from a mile away. We have a bunch of spin-offs planned in this universe. I hope this won't leave the sequels feeling a little light, and I'm also kind of disappointed this is in its own separate universe. That can change at any point, given multiverse is a buzzword of the moment, but still. However, for the first time in a long time, watching a Batman movie felt like an event, and I can't give this movie any higher praise than that. Yup, this beat out the freaking Batman, and it was no contest. And yes, technically this movie came out last year, but it was released here in 2022. And it came out the same weekend that Thor Love and Thunder was released, but I chose to see this first. I made the right call. Jujutsu Kaisen 0 is a prequel to the manga Jujutsu Kaisen, where we get to see some of the earlier days of the older cast at Tokyo Prefectural Jujutsu High School. However, calling it a prequel isn't accurate, as the manga it was based on was actually published first. It was the success of the original 4-part manga that eventually led to the sequel series, Jujutsu Kaisen, getting greenlit. The plot centers around a high schooler called Yuta Okotsu, whose dead childhood sweetheart Rika clings to him and prevents any harm from befalling him. Except her methods are a bit too destructive. While initially scheduled for execution, a teacher at said Jujutsu High School and everybody's favorite character, Satoru Gojo, decides to give Yuta a chance to get his abilities under control. That's all the plot I'm willing to go into, because you should definitely check this movie out, and I'm going to tell you why, regardless of whether or not you're a Jujutsu Kaisen fan or not. Most anime movies tend to not really have an effect on the overall story being told in the manga or anime, essentially being high-quality filler that acts as a showcase for the entire series. This movie is not that, as it is very much part of the ongoing saga, and certain things happen here that leaves a greater impact on the story of Jujutsu Kaisen. However, this doesn't make it an absolute necessity. And yes, that is a positive, because a story that requires you to go watch other stuff to get the full picture isn't doing a good job telling the story now, is it? It merely serves as an enhancement. Let me explain. If you've watched Jujutsu Kaisen and then watched Zero like I did, you get a nice in-depth look at characters like Maki, Gojo, Panda, and the others. If you watch Zero and then decide to check the series out, you are already introduced to several characters and are excited to see them again. And that's extremely rare. Not just among anime movies, but any form of media in general, thanks to the unique situation Jujutsu Kaisen finds itself in. It also helps that the characters don't change drastically from one iteration to the next, leaving the viewer with a sense of consistency. Oh, and in case I haven't made it quite clear, this is just an amazing movie. The voice acting is on point, the visuals are slick as one would expect from Studio Mappa currently, and the plot is properly paced, which is probably due to the fact that adapting a 4-issue manga into a movie might require very little cutting of plot points to adjust for runtime. And yeah, Jujutsu Kaisen 0 was the best movie I have seen all year. The best part? I knew that from the moment I left the theater. Black Panther Wakanda Forever, great movie in its own right, and the Batman is, of course, the Batman, but in the end, neither came close. So, those are the movies I saw in 2022. Overall, a mixed bag with mostly not so great stuff. But even the ones I ranked lower on the list had moments I genuinely liked. But what about you? Did you watch any of the movies I listed? All of them? None of them? What did you watch this year? And what are you planning to watch next year? Because it's Christmas right now and we're on the cusp of another year ending. And while the past can be disappointing and the future can be quite frightening, it's best to treat the good things you have today as a gift, even if it can be difficult sometimes. After all, it's called present for